Okay, welcome everybody to the town board meeting of Tuesday, March 13th, 2018. And we're going to go a little bit out of order. We have a special guest tonight that we're going to recognize, a high school student, Eric DePelt. DePelt? All right, it's a miracle. I probably didn't, but you're probably just saying that. But I appreciate that. So a couple weeks back, actually was it last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, on the candlelight setting of the Kittle House, they had a power failure. The Rotary Club honored Eric for his work that he did in honor of his aunt, who passed away from pancreatic cancer. And I heard about Eric's story, and I thought that it'd be nice to invite him to the town board meeting and share his story with the town board and with everybody that watches. We don't get a big crowd here, but people do watch it. And so why don't you come up, Eric, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you did with your Team Jane. Right there, right there. Listen, I remember when you were at the Rotary, you said public speaking, you're never great at public speaking, and now you are, so I want to give you some more practice.
Um,
The microphone is not so we can hear you, it's so the people
Right.
watching can
Yeah.
hear you.
yeah, so let's see. So during my freshman year in high school, when I was 13, about 3.5 years ago, I learned that my Aunt Jane was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And for those of you who don't know, pancreatic cancer is, by statistics, like the survival rate, it's the deadliest cancer. Back then, 7% survived 5 years, if that. I think that was rounded up. And my aunt was just my best friend, very like cliche-like. There was just no one that it couldn't have been more worse news, basically. And so when I looked up that survival rate, that 5 year, 7%, I was just shocked. It was like, it wasn't even like fear. It was just like, I was numb. I was so surprised that with all the technology that was going on, that this was even possible. And I kind of couldn't really accept that. So there's the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the leading organization in the fight against pancreatic cancer. It's just like this thousands of people kind of grassroots organization with a lot of like 5K events across the country. So I emailed them and I said, I'm 13, I really want to do something. I don't know what I can do, but just let me know how I can help. And with my dad, we made kind of a game plan where we said we're just going to go to these 5K events across the country and we're going to try to fundraise as much as we can and do whatever we can do. And that was kind of how it started. I just made a website, team-jane.com, just to kind of spread the word, organize our supporters. And we started out in New Jersey, then went to New York, then to Delaware, then to Chicago. We kind of kept trying to add more walks to our little movement around my aunt. And over time, friends and family started showing up, started donating and getting involved, supporting my aunt, cooking for her, kind of taking up the motto of whatever we can do, let's just do it. And so we did that for about a year and raised about $20,000, which was like 10 times our original goal. And I said to my dad, I just wanted to keep doing more. So I actually reached out to the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network again, and I said I want to intern for you guys, which was another kind of a moonshot. But once again, they responded that they would love that. So I actually flew out to Manhattan Beach 2 summers ago, and I lived there for about a month, interned there. I started a project called Voices of Hope. I realized that my aunt was kind of my anchor in this fight, kind of kept me tethered to it. So I thought we could maybe do something similar for other kids, where they could just go reach out to a survivor. I could pair them up just with the phone, like a 10-minute audio recording, publish it online, and that would kind of be like a gateway for kids to get involved. So we did that, and we kept attending these walks, kept asking ourselves, what more can we do? But unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, right after that, after Voices of Hope premiered, it was supposed to be my aunt and I would be the first one to kick it off. But unfortunately, she had a stroke and went into the hospital and unfortunately passed away after about 3 years. And so I took a bit of a different turn, and I interned with a new organization, Code Purple, where I did another kind of like series of interviews, except this time I was more dedicated to, instead of sharing stories, fueling progress. So I interviewed a lot of top researchers at Memorial Sloan Kettering, Dana-Farber, a lot of the top cancer institutes, especially with centers for pancreatic cancer. And that's how I spent my last summer. And throughout all of this, we basically kept up the same motto of like a grassroots organization. What can we do? How can we fundraise just the extra dollar? And so alongside those two internships, we've kept the walks going, and our total now is about 180,000. So with my aunts, with the memory of my aunt, that's kind of what keeps fueling us going.
That's great.
Thank you for sharing. That's
Great.
Wow,
inspirational. Thank you.
congratulations.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a really nice video, which I'm going to be putting in the newsletter, too. But I also wanted to present you this on behalf of the town board. And, I mean, it's you know, just a certificate of appreciation. It looks nicer when in real frame and everything. But basically, in recognition of your dedication and commitment to raising critical funds to support cancer research through your creation of Team Jane, honoring the memory of your Aunt Jane, and for your service and contribution to our Newcastle community. So on behalf of the town of Newcastle, I'd like to award you with this certificate of appreciation. You guys want to take a picture with them? Come on, Eric, come back, let's take a picture. Yeah, come around here.
It's amazing.
Stand on my tippy toes.
My 13-year-old can't even clean up his
Hey,
plate.
Eric, say that. Come on in. Should we get the chairs out of here? Let's get the chairs out.
Everything down.
Sorry, Eddie. Let's scoot down here. Come on in.
Down
Eric.
here, you go in the middle.
What are we looking at? Thanks, Eddie. Great job.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So exciting. Good for you.
Kaz, I don't know how you're gonna follow that.
Our
right,
pleasure.
thank you.
It's phenomenal. She was so proud. She was
Congratulations.
so proud. Thank you so much. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, yeah, definitely. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for your tireless storm help, all of you.
Oh, thank you. How long were you out?
Welcome.
We were in his, I'm on his email chain, we were out till Saturday night.
Right, right, right.
But we know that many of you did many things. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Good
Don't
night.
throw anything at me.
All right, terrific. All right, so let's get back to here, the agenda. So, all right, start with some quick announcements. Actually, Kaz, you want to go? You want to go just because you? You sure?
I'm going out there after you guys.
So you want to stay in the warm? He wants to stay. Yeah. He wants
Oh, I see. Do you want us to go at the end?
to stay. Right. Yeah. Put you at the end.
We can have you on at 11 o'clock.
I'm going out there anyway.
Actually, listen. I got another text. I just want to make sure it's from ASAP. So he sent me a video. I don't know. Forget it. It's all right.
But
You open the road. You open.
Don't play that video.
You open. No, it has to do with the road being closed. You guys reopen the road.
Yeah, I just
Okay,
sent it over
all right,
to
good.
Joe and told him they had pulled the plate, and I had already spoken with Billy yesterday.
This might as well do
Listen
go.
now,
Go.
whatever. I spoke with Billy about what happened Friday. So he talked to them or whatever, but he's not here tonight. So when I was just with them.
Can you
I forget-
rewind what happened Friday?
Well, Friday, they shut down Lower King at 7:45. We're supposed to be there from 8 to 6. But they get out there and they close it down, start going. And the restaurant calls and says, because it was a Friday night,
Right.
but we got knocked off the night before, that's why they were there Friday. We're usually not out there Friday. So we talked about doing this and adjusting at times what we can do. But we have another crew, just so that you're aware what's going on. We have another crew starting tomorrow to help expedite this. As of yesterday, we got the okay. My understanding that Con Ed is still coming tomorrow to hold that last pole for us so we can get
Great.
into that manhole. We have half the laterals in, that's what we were doing last night. So at this point in the game, we're there to, once I can get into that last manhole, then it opens up everything. We can start connecting everything and come out. But they're having another crew tomorrow come, and they will be starting to go down South Greeley out of that one manhole now, because they're pretty much caught up to what we can do on Lower King.
So when are you going to get
And
off Lower King?
I think by the end of next week. That's giving more time, yeah, yes. I think, to what I can see and the way things are going, if we have the second crew, we could be off there maybe by Tuesday, Wednesday. It's just, I have the couple of core things, so there's other subs that come, and if kind of comes tomorrow, we're digging tonight to get it down so that the box is set at the base of the pole, so that when they do come and grab it, we just have to go the rest of the way down.
John, do you need me to call someone at Con Ed?
No, they're
Have we
they're
confirmed
coming.
it?
Yes,
You
they
sure?
confirmed, and that was the last, and we talked to Danny from Con Ed last night, he's the inspector out there, and my understanding they're coming. 'Cause we're on the
Right,
schedule.
good.
They
Because we
confirmed I was
said
getting
2
power
weeks.
back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, they were right.
Yeah. Oh, this
Well, we
is,
said it was gonna be 2 weeks ago, and I know we had the storm in between, but anything we can do, it's horrible for the merchants down there, so anything we can do to
Yeah,
push them.
they told us, I guess it was about a week and a half ago, that it would be this date, March 14th.
That's Con
And-
Ed?
And, yes, Con Ed. And Rocco confirmed it here on Thursday to them, that yes, they'll be there. A truck will be there to hold the pole, because we only need one truck, just to hold the pole. So that's what we're hoping.
Okay.
And the work, I know the answer to this, but I want to ask it anyway, just for the benefit of everybody else. The amount of time you spent on Lower King is only because that's like the sort of the ground zero. You're
Yeah.
not going to be spending as much time on every 200-foot section.
No. Once we get off of there, it'll go a lot faster. It's just, there was a lot of, that's the deepest length that we have there. And with the way everything laid out, with the gas lines, once we start going down South Greeley, all the sanitary sewer lines are on one side. So we're not crossing South Greeley. We're gonna be in that sidewalk and connecting to the buildings right there.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's gonna be a lot of turmoil right in front of the buildings.
Yeah, but that'll all be at night, and like we talked about, jacking it, in the beginning and doing it. And we actually talked about, once we get rolling, if some of the sewer lines we can do during the day, the laterals. Not in front of the buildings or anything, but if it's outside of the entrances and we're in dead areas where you can still get in, they'll do it. To do like the short connections, because we're right there. We don't have to go across the highway, but South Greeley. Like, we had to go across King. Going across King, we had to go under the new gas line, under the new water main, all the way across. So you had, a lot of it's not so much hand digging, but it's just a pain in the neck to go into that stuff. You can only dig so far, then you gotta be careful. Then you have the new water services that we put in, the 2-inch water services are right next to it. But we're not gonna hit that when we do South Greeley. It's because everything comes right off the sewer line, and goes right into the building. They're right there, we don't have to cross the road. Once we get to, like, Scoops, and right there at 120, as soon as we cross the road, we don't have to cross it again until we get down to Pizza Station. And all those buildings are in one section, so once we cross there, that's it. So, that's what we're hoping, and they're gonna have 2 crews. We have a pipe delivery tomorrow, so we're setting up now when they're gonna bring in a day crew. They wanna try and do another night crew, but it looks like it's gonna be a day crew to get into the culvert in front of the gas station that we had spoken about.
Right.
Digging that pit and starting that, to get that going. But the pipe is coming tomorrow, so.
At that vortex. The
The
30-ton
vortex, the vortex is ready, they're just waiting for the structures, because we got the pipe. He didn't get the verification of the delivery, because the first one is where the elliptical pipe goes out of the culvert, that first one where it splits, and then it comes up to, right in front of the gas station there. There's like 6 structures that are coming on the first load, 2 of which are next to the vortex. So as soon as we have it, we'll know they're coming. I just found out yesterday that they're verified, we're getting the pipe tomorrow. So it could be in another week, and then that's another whole day thing, that's 3 weeks worth of day work. So it's gonna take off a lot now. And we will be off King until they come back to do curb and sidewalk.
Right, good.
Be done there, I'll freshen up the lines, and that'll be, it'll be paved. That's what I'm just hoping we can get it sometime next week.
When you wrap up the work on Lower King next week, what condition are the roads going to be in?
It'll be paved, patched and paved.
Not like like paving for
No,
good, or just?
right.
No,
Trench
patch,
paving.
trench pads. It's usually like
Right.
3 inches thick, but it'll be, smooth.
And is it going to be sufficiently warm, we think, that there won't be the same sort of rutting and issues that we experienced with some
Yeah,
of the
well,
patching we did over the winter?
Yeah, because I was just actually looking at the weather. Next week, because it's like 20 during the night and 40s in the day. I'm hoping it changes, so that maybe we can come in with a day crew and get hot asphalt when they do it. I don't want to do it with cold patch.
Do they even open the asphalt plants?
Sometimes. What happens is they get the worm day and people call in for that purpose. And they'll get it and they'll open it for 2 days or whatever and run it. I'll find out though, because I want to get it with hot asphalt, because we're going to leave it for a couple of weeks, probably a couple of months until they get in with that. Yeah, for the sidewalk and curb. So.
That would be great. We've been hearing a lot from people about as you
Oh, I
have as
know.
well.
I've been hearing it. I know, it's just, that's a hard road. There's no room, it's just very hard there. With it coming out of the alley, the sewer line, it's a lot.
Well, especially if you have a restaurant. It does,
Yeah, yeah.
But, all right. I mean, we are reaching out to the merchants to get some feedback as far as day work. You know, we'll have some questions for you. But, you know, we're still getting feedback.
Yeah, I saw the email from Sarah about all her questions. I'm gonna go talk to her, because I just don't know, it's not gonna be, we're not gonna it's only gonna do it if it's worth doing.
Right.
We're not gonna try and make some big elaborate thing out of it, because she's like, what areas? We don't know, because we won't know until we find the laterals going into the building. And I'd spoken to them about how maybe we could expedite some of them so that we don't have to go back and do it, like maybe test it as we go, because it's a low-pressure test. And I'm like, we can plug it and go, but we'll have to talk to Westchester County Health Department about that if I do that, but we'll see.
So I think it's great that you're going to go and have a conversation with Sarah personally, because her questions are really good, and she's reached out
Yeah.
to a lot of us individually. But I want to make sure that whatever answers we give to her, we're also making sure that we've got the answers collectively among us, so that we can provide them more broadly to all of the merchants. Not
It's just
those
very,
last.
it's very hard at a month out to explain it, because there's just so many variables that you just don't know until you get there and you start doing it. And maybe, you know, a week before and the weather's nice, to say, you know, 2 days, we're gonna be out here tomorrow. And I don't wanna say, well, we'll find out if it's okay. And then, oh, we don't know, and then they don't come out, and then everybody goes, oh yeah, you could've came. And then it's like, well, no, it's too late now to get the crew there, kind of thing. That's why, like, when Con Ed starts showing up with this stuff, as everybody knows, you don't tell them to leave. You know, if they come, you just welcome them in, throw snowballs at them.
we know.
You know, everybody's got that awakening, and I mean, it's all over, even up by me, but it's, so, at least somebody else is yelling at Con Ed, so.
I mean, you know, the thing is with the merchants, I mean, listen, it's really just a question of picking your poison. I mean, there's no way around, you know, there's no easy way to
Yeah.
put in these sewer system. It's, you know, it's a question of whether, you know, you want the disruption to be, like Jeremy says, you know, pulling off the Band-Aid. You know, it's just a question of, do you want them out of there as soon as possible? And also to do everything in our power to minimize the chances that this runs into another holiday season. I mean, it's,
Yeah, we had that meeting again with Leo, the new project manager. I spoke with him about what the plan was. He's going over his schedule now to see what we can, you know, where we're heading and what we're doing. But I think the one good thing's gonna happen is us being out there at night. Once we get around the corner and start going down South Greeley, the restaurant's impacted some, but nowhere near, like, because everybody else is closed. So a lot of the businesses we've been talking about staying, once we get into the sidewalk, staying later in the morning. If we're not interfering with traffic going both directions on South Greeley, and the businesses don't open until 9, you know, why are we gonna leave at 6 if we can stay till 8? Then close it up, and then they come and they open it, we're off an hour before they show up. As long as we're not dealing with the traffic, because a lot of the businesses there don't have until 9 o'clock.
right, well, that's the key thing about
Then, you know, and then we'll adjust it that way. So there's no restaurant to worry about night. We can come and do what we have to do.
What about Sunday work? I mean, I know it's not in the contract, but is Sunday an option?
I think it's double time. That's the problem.
Right. That's what I
With the
figured.
unions, you start getting into
No,
double
no,
time.
I
or-
assumed, I just wanted to ask.
There's something goes on with all of that. I mean, just at night, is a night differential. Just being out there at night. I don't get it, but.
John, is it possible for us to start an additional day crew with drainage on North Greeley while the sewer stuff is going
No,
on?
no, the problem is you have to go from the lowest point up in case we run into something where you have to raise a pipe, you know what I mean, to go over it. But once they come, like I said, once they get here, they want to do that at night too. But they can't cross, by the bank there and by Pizza Station until we get the sewer line across. So that's right now, they have 2 crews, it's supposedly starting tomorrow. So we'll have 2 crews, and then they're supposed to kick it up to 3. So that we have them running, once we get to the manhole, we're gonna have a crew at night crossing, while the other one continues down to 120 Quaker. And the other one will cross and start going in the sidewalk, and then they'll fall back behind, and that's what the plan is. They're hoping then, within the next week or 2, we'll have, structures in for the vortex, and then they'll do that at night. Get the crane out there at night and do that at night.
What about for daytime work, as far as limiting it to like, let's say Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? Or does it have to be every single day? Because some of the merchants, their point was, we're not, Monday and Tuesday are slow days for downtown, so.
Yeah, if, the only way they'll do the day work is if it doesn't affect them. We're not gonna rip stuff up because it's very hard, like with control, because then you have to have another superintendent, you have another full crews. He would rather everybody be there at night, get 3 crews at night, overnight, and just have the thing roaring, because
Right.
you have, only one loader guy, instead of a loader guy in a day and a loader guy at night. You have 2 operators on the excavators, things like that, so you have extra people to do things where you won't if you break it up. The only thing I think they're trying to do is they don't want to be in the middle of everything downtown, because it's just too much to control, there's too much traffic.
So,
That's their big thing about night.
so would your recommendation then be not to have a daytime crew?
No, daytime crews will be good if, like, when we're doing the sewer line in front of the buildings on South Greeley. We have this
Okay.
line in it, it's tested, and we have 4 laterals that are in the sidewalk going right into the building. We're not out in the street. It might pay to have 1 week of a day crew doing 1 at a time, but as long as it's not in the walkway coming into the building. We can work between this building opening and this one, this doorway.
So I think
and
that's a
they'll
very
put a walkway
important-
around so people coming down the sidewalk can go
Yeah,
around
so
us.
Right, as long as people
Yeah.
can
But
get
I feel like
into the
that's a very
building.
important message for you to bring back to the merchants too, that it would
Yeah.
not affect the egress.
Yeah, they'll always have,
At the building and that-
and if it's gonna, they're not gonna do it during the day.
Right.
They don't wanna
That,
deal with
that
it.
message, what you just said.
Yeah, they're not
is
gonna do it.
critical.
We gotta, once we see them and we see where we're at,
Right.
and then they might come in on, in the morning and do one, stay late, offset, that's what we've been trying to do. Because they're doing 4, 10 hours, and we've been losing days with these storms. The rain, and it's just relentless.
So ideally, we'd like to have a meeting with the merchants, because what we want to do is, we're all having conversations about what's going on, but the merchants really are at this point like the last to know. And we'd like that not to be the case. We understand that part of the problem is being able to project a month out what's happening. But I think at some point, and it's coming very soon, we need to include them in on these conversations and be able to answer as many questions as we possibly can, and to be able to fill them in, or at least bring them up to as much current information as we can, so that they understand what the plan is going forward.
Yeah, no, but when's their next Chamber of Commerce meeting?
We don't have to really wait for the chamber. We can do
Whatever.
it at any point in time. So the only thing is that, we just need to have a conversation about how far in advance we can give them a heads up as to what we're planning, and answer all their questions, and still be within the window of,
Their
that's like,
change.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can just give that some thought, because we're going to have to, within the
We'll
next
set
2 weeks,
something
we
up.
need to have this meeting. Okay?
And I got an email, I got a text message from Tony as we're sitting here. They never opened up Lower King, so.
Yeah, because I sent something to Jovan to tell him, and he went out there and talked to Fox, the guy, and he had texted me, no problem. But I don't know if, because they go out there and they pull the plates off of everything, and and I told her, and we had this conversation, because I talked with Billy from ELQ after I got your text on Friday night. I went and I talked to him, I got one, I called Billy, I explained to Billy, he said he was at the restaurant, I think Saturday, I don't know, it was Friday night or Saturday, he was there and talked to Tony.
Right.
And he said, no problem, no problem. I saw him last night, no problem. They weren't there last night, but then he wasn't here yet. and I guess the operator went out there with the guy and they hooked it up and pulled it off.
You know, I have to tell you, even if we put up, you know, we have the sign up
Yeah, I
now
saw
that
the
says
sign up there.
additional, but if you can create a sign that says, you know, detour park, restaurant open, detour parking, just so people know to go around at least.
Right, I'll talk to Bill. He should
you
be
know.
here by now, because he would usually here at 7:30.
Well, let's get the road open because,
Yeah.
you know, the restaurant is still open, you know.
Yeah, it's hard for him, I understand that, you know, because I even talked about coming in later on the days to offset it. It's just hard with, a lot of it's with the union stuff and just all how that all lines up, and it's, I don't know. They have so much stuff with those agreements, and,
Well, hopefully it's only another week,
yeah.
but, you know, either way, let's try to, he's
Yeah.
hurting.
I'll talk to him and see what we can do, because if I get the one thing in, we might be able to start closing some of this stuff up. That's what I'm hoping. I want to get it done. I really want to get off that road.
Can I ask you one more question before you go? When would we expect to get the next update from you in terms of the project plan and the budget and spending to date? Just an honest question. I don't know what the cadence is and the frequency with which we
Yeah,
receive those reports.
I'm putting together another payment for Friday. I went over this with Jill because they said about the cost, that there was all kinds of conversation about the cost weighted schedule and all of that. But Leo's putting together an update in his schedule for their part that they have to do. And they were talking about, well, it's January, February's payment. But I reminded him, for January, we really didn't do much because the change order came with the hand dig, and they were closed for part of the Christmas holiday through that, and then with the shutdown. And with the way it calls to be paid, a lot of it has to be tested first to even give them like 70% of it. And we only have the run, there's 2 manholes, whatever. That's why we waited. Because really it's January, February's payment, but it's really only February's work. So we're hoping for this Friday to have another one together with the pictures and everything else. And once he has that number, he's
And
gonna
these will
put
be on a
together-
monthly basis, we'll be getting these?
Yeah, from now on, it should be monthly basis unless there's problems where it is, but it'll be monthly.
Yeah, I suspect we're going to probably have to discuss it even more frequently because we're going to start spending money much more quickly as things sort
Yeah,
of
once
pick
it
up
starts
here.
going and the subs start
Yeah.
showing up, there's gonna be all kinds of stuff
Thank you.
happening. so-
Sorry, keep you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay,
Okay?
all right,
Thank you.
thanks, Kaz.
If you need
Thanks.
anything, you got my number.
Open the road, we need that. All right,
See you later.
see you later. All right, so now we'll start our meeting with announcements. Okay, let's see, we got 2 things at the Chapco Performing Arts Center. We got Hubble's Music of Bedford Hills, March 16th, 7 to 8:15. By the way, I heard the concert last night was, weekend was
Yeah,
sold out.
Friday night.
What was that again? I forgot. Doesn't matter.
don't remember.
I forgot what it was. I didn't go. And then we also have Ricky Lee Jones coming March 23rd. That's 8 to 10.
And that is going to sell out. There are only a few tickets left.
The 2-time Grammy winner, Ricky Lee Jones. So Monday night, conversation with the supervisor. That's 7 o'clock at the Chapco Library.
Is that going to sell out?
That will not sell out.
Did you win a Grammy?
That will not. No, I have
Totally.
not. I have not. Nothing. 0.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, thank you. Then we have the concussion program. That's on Saturday, March 24th, and that's going to be showing at the Chapco Performing Arts Center at 1:30 p.m. They're going to show the movie Concussion, and then they're going to have a question and answer period with a panel of experts from Northern Westchester Hospital. And then we have Coffee and Conversation. County Executive George Latimer and County Legislator Mike Kaplitz will be here on Saturday, April 14th, 10 to 11:30, right here in Town Hall. And coffee and snacks will be provided. And that's really it. The rest of the stuff's in May. We'll hold off on that. And power outage. Power has been restored to all Newcastle customers. I think that's accurate. Okay. And thank you to our first responders, our volunteer firefighters, and the ambulance corps who are always there for us. While we're safe at home, they were away from their families working on our behalf. They were on the roads working tirelessly in often dangerous conditions to keep our community safe. As always, they were there for us when we needed them most. Thank you. I also want to thank the long, hard hours put in by the Police Department, Department of Public Works, our entire municipal staff, including Jill, and of course all the dedicated line crews who work to restore our power. I also want to thank our elected officials, Congressman Lowy's office, the governor's office, Senator Murphy, Assemblyman Buckwald, County Legislator Mike Kaplitz for their advocacy on our behalf. And if any of this remaining storm damage, we ask you to email us at stormdamage@mynewcastle.org. We forgot to mention the
Yeah.
our discussion, we can talk about it. We're looking into planning, what are we calling it again? The
Community conversation.
Community
Table.
conversation. We could call it a town hall, but it's not going to be a town hall, it's going to be at the Chapel Library. But basically, the Ivy and her Community Preparedness Committee, they want to hear feedback from the residents as far as what we as a community town could have done better, problems they had with Con Ed, so that we can write them a letter to express our concerns with Con Ed. We can talk generators, we can talk solar panels, and just hear from the residents. The goal is to try to do it while it's fresh in everybody's mind. Assuming everybody thinks that's a good idea, we're going to start advertising that tomorrow in the newsletter. And so that's scheduled for, what is that, March? Actually, that
Wednesday,
was-
March 21st at
Right.
7 PM.
That was the day we initially were talking about. We had reserved the library for a roundtable on gun violence, but in light of the storm, we just think it might be good to get some feedback as soon as possible on this, especially since we're moving forward with the gun violence on different fronts. I know, Lisa, you met with the superintendent of Chapel Schools. You can fill us in on that if you want. So that was that. Composting, we have on our agenda tonight to approve the pilot program. What else do we got here? We had an RBI summit here this past weekend, Sunday. What's an RBI summit, you ask?
What's an RBI summit, Rob?
Well, basically what it is, Ivy, it's, we had SAB members from all over the county came, and our incredible Sustainability Advisory Board, Steve, Woke, and Jennifer, they talked about how, the steps that they took to get it passed here in Newcastle and some of the pushback they got, and basically they were providing guidance to other SAB boards to get it passed in their towns.
And RBI stands for Reusable Bag Initiative.
That's right, Lisa,
Yes.
that does. And so basically, there were people here from all over Westchester, and it was really very helpful, I think. We got some great feedback. So, and that's it. I also want to recognize 2 Eagle Scouts that just became Eagle Scouts last week, Alexander Chin and Jonathan Fisher, and incredible honor, and I was very proud to take part in the ceremony. So thank you. That's it from announcements. Did you want to, Lisa, update everybody?
Sure. So I met, I was supposed to meet, during the storm, but it got a little delayed for obvious reasons. But I was able to meet this past week with Christine Ackerman, our superintendent of schools. We talked about various issues, including how security at the schools will be enhanced, and also about organizing a group of students to go up to Albany, not for just a photo op, but to have a meaningful discussion, hopefully set up meetings with many senators and assemblymen. The tentative date for that now is going to be Friday, April 20th. The students don't know yet, but that will be a half day of school. And so that any students who, surprise, any students who wanted to attend, it would not be during a school day. It would be right after school, and we would be during a weekday. So hopefully we can set up appointments, and the town will be working on that with the student government. I'm meeting with liaisons of the student government tomorrow morning to discuss agendas and talking points, because we really want to make this, run by the students, but make this a meaningful trip and a meaningful discussion to talk to all of our legislators about enhanced laws on gun control.
And this may have been addressed, are they going to actually get pending legislation so they can understand the bills, or at least direct them to what the bills that are pending in both the Assembly and the Senate now, so that they, instead of a talking point, and that's not meant to sound snippy,
No.
Instead of a talking point, they actually said, I read the 3-page of legislation, A, B, C, and D, so now I can ask my representative, Buckwald, Murphy, and whomever else is there, you support or don't support this, and why? Explain.
Yes, they will. The students are unbelievable. Right now, the student government's been planning some events for tomorrow, but, and I'm meeting with the school representatives, and then tomorrow as well. And then they'll have all that, and it'll all be organized prior to the 20th.
And I think also just to sort of bear in mind that to the extent that we can have this be student-led
It will be.
advocacy as opposed to town or Chappaqua Central School District-led advocacy, sort of the voices of Max and the other students sort of shining through and
Right.
being first and foremost among us.
Well, the school district is really an apolitical body, so they are not getting involved from that type of perspective, which is why it won't be done as a field trip during a school day, for instance. The
Lisa, can I ask
school
a
will be
qu-
closed
que-
then.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question, just an interesting one.
Well, I just
When-
wanted to
I'm
finish
sorry, go
what I
ahead.
was saying. But the town is going to hopefully provide buses and will help organize, but it really should be run and will be run by the students.
This may be a question not for you, but maybe in part of your conversation you had it. If the school is apolitical, which I understand is important to the school, do they not have, though, that being said, do they not have a position in terms of what they believe will keep their student body the safest? Because obviously, those who are in the position to protect those children should know what the best means are to protect those children. So has that come up, or when we say not political, and again, you may not have the answer, do they not
Some of the answer.
have any position on those, on legislation that they think would best enhance the safety of students?
So I think that they do. The school district is an apolitical body. They're not going to lobby one way or the other. However, at least that's what I've been told. Christine may say differently. But they are talking, though, about ways to enhance security at the school, which I'm not going to speak about publicly.
Right, it's not.
But they do have ideas of what could help protect them. And certainly, I think the student government has the ears of the school, and through students being activists, they can get the points of the school district across.
Well, I think it's also depending on what you talk about political. I mean, nobody's going up there to say we like the Democrats, we don't like the Republicans, or vice versa. They're going up there to advocate for gun control.
Right, I didn't mean it party-wise, I
Right.
meant it
The point is they're
legislation-wise.
advocating legislation on gun control.
The students
And
are.
the students, right, and that's not political. I mean, they are advocating for a position.
Well, but lobbying for a
different-
position is, so it's my understanding that a school district doesn't do that, but certainly students from a school
I think
district
it's an
can.
interesting question, and it's not, Ellen, because you're dealing with it right now. It's interesting to hear. One would think that the school would have a position, whatever that means, whether it's the administration, whether it's the whomever it may be, what they believe would be the best to protect students, not just in terms of security in the moment, but legislation. But that's not a conversation that we can answer anyway.
Right.
But I'm just thinking out loud as you're discussing this.
Yep. And I'll keep the board updated.
I'm sure if they talk about like, arming teachers, the school would have a position on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one would think,
But,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily political, but it's just basically when we may or may not want our teachers to be
Political as a
armed.
Right.
political
May
is a liberal
not,
term.
may not.
Just trying
May
to
not.
be neutral about it.
I'm not neutral about it.
Well, I was,
Not.
I was, as far as the school's position. I
got
think we
it.
all know what their position would be.
I wanted to.
But we're not speaking for the school district
No,
at
100%.
all.
I
But they
understand.
are being helpful in terms of helping us to organize, which I will be doing with the student body.
Right.
And Max, you got to work with Lisa on this. Lisa, you got to reach
Sure.
out to Max.
Okay.
Maybe he can meet with you with some of the liaisons.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to a few of my friends now. We're actually trying to plan a trip to DC, which we got everything working except all three of our parents are busy and we legally need a parent to go with us. So we're trying to figure that. We're trying to squeeze that element, but other than that, we've got it all planned.
Well, I plan on going one day. I can go.
Like on the 24th, I mean.
Oh.
That's the big trip to
Oh, that's a
Washington.
big trip to Washington.
Yeah.
Well, we can look into that.
It's three kids trying to find an adult. I think we'll be fine, but what I'm saying is we're ready, willing, and able to go. It's not
Right.
just all.
Right.
That's
And
great.
we should. I mean, it worked in Florida. It's working all over the country. It's not working all over the country, but the kids are motivated all over the country. And I sent you that thing, Greenberg. The kids are having a rally at the school, and it's great.
And so, I mean, I think the message for you to take back to your fellow students is that this board wants to support you. So if there are ways, and we're taking it directly to the school with messaging, but, as you're having sort of conversations among your peers too, if there are ways that the town board can assist you, we are ready and willing to do that.
Right. And I think it's going to be organized just because there are a lot of students interested and you need one kind of point person. So it's going to be organized through the student government and then, galvanized from there. Okay?
I don't have anything else to say, sorry.
That's quite all right. I wanted to, can I comment just on, thank you. So it seems sort of trivial now in light of the fact you're talking about firearms and safety, but it certainly wasn't trivial for people who were out without power for 3, 5, 8, 10 plus days. And first off, I'm going to reiterate what Rob said, and thank you, Jill, for being involved and on top, and Rob and Lisa and Ivy and everyone in Hala, genuinely, being on these calls that were sometimes
Heartbreaking.
mind-numbing for an hour, 2 hours of roll calls of every municipality. And people had a lot to say, including myself at one point, but we all had an opportunity to share. But what I wanted to just address briefly is, it's not an attack on we'll call it the boots on the ground and the men and women who are answering the phones and things like that. Our liaison, Michael, was terrific. It's not him. And what was very disappointing, if you were on those municipal calls, if you wanted to know where a particular crew was, how long they had been at a location, how many men or women were in that crew, how many vehicles were in that crew, whether there's a bucket truck in that crew, there wasn't an answer. It wasn't an answer. If you wanted to know at one point, maybe on Saturday, and I may have my day wrong, and this is by no means an attack on a different municipality because we're not looking to fight one another, it was where are the men and women to help us? Why at one point we had 4 crews with, again, who knows how many trucks were in that crew, how many men or women were working those crews, but we had 505 customers out with 4 crews, but I believe it was Terrytown, but that's really inconsequential. Yeah, I mean, it's
Someone
inconsequential, but I'd have some numbers, but it's nothing to do, could be Scarsdale, Yorktown, Yonkers, doesn't make a difference. Had 29 outages with 7 crews. Why? I'd be curious to know what, if any, issues in terms of overtime came into play to staff people after 10 o'clock or on the weekends. Whether or not, why was a resident, when I say a resident, why were we all advised that we would have power, for example, at Monday at 11 p.m., and at 10:30 we get a phone call saying you're not going to have power? We all knew that answer. And Con Edison knew that answer not minutes before, but likely a half a day before, if not earlier. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And my assumption is you get phone calls wondering why it's taking so long, and this sort of staved off, pushed off phone calls to not bottle up their, call centers. But whether you're an infirm person, whether you're an older person, and speaking just personally for me, my son had a, trivial surgery, but no surgery is trivial. He's 5 years old. And I couldn't prepare. It was canceled multiple times of no fault of Con Edison, obviously. But if I didn't have power for 8 days, how can I prepare to bring a child home who needs to come home? We heard about a woman who I believe had flooding in her basement. She was 2 weeks away from delivery in one of these municipalities. You can't allow that to happen. The goal here is not to attack Con Edison. We need Con Edison. But it's just worth noting that when we consider double pole legislation for the sole purpose to increase safety and make sure that people were not put in harm's way, and that is the sole goal of that legislation. As soon as Con Edison was aware that their pockets could be hit, not only do we get a letter trying to intimidate us about whether or not it's legal, which I'm comfortable based on your advice that it is, but that we got how many people from different companies, from what now is Altice, Verizon, Optimum, Con Edison, a dozen, 15 people around a table, maybe more, that came around saying, we're going to work with you. And I have no doubt they're going to work with us, but it shouldn't come to us, I use the term threat liberally. I don't mean it in terms of a threat to stick them in the pocketbook, but a statement that if you don't protect our community, we will, and it could cost you. And again, it's not about the dollars, it's about safety and the health of our community, but it's disheartening. I have not looked online, and someone had told me that there was no compensation for people who lost dollars in terms of food and things like that. I think there needs to be accountability. I know, Jill, we had sort of briefly discussed the possibility, and I don't know what's going to come of it, about what maybe overtime and things that fees and costs that we are going to be saddled with for overtime and things like that, that as a result of their negligence. And I reached out to Jerry at one point, Jerry Marshall, who did a fantastic job, and all his guys, Bert, they all did a fantastic job. But people in the field were telling residents that they could not do X. And it wasn't just our municipality. We heard complaints from all the municipalities. They can't fix this particular resident's issue until that particular municipality came in and took a tree down. But that's a lie. Now, I may take a step back. It may not be a lie. It could be misinformation, a misunderstanding from the person in the field. Let's be reasonable. But when you take all this collectively and you look at Con Edison's actions and lack of actions, not knowing where addresses were, naming the wrong street in the wrong community, it's just simply not okay. And what's the recourse? I don't know, but I said on one of our calls, which I was really hot, and you know, wasn't rude or offensive, but I was really hot, and I said, everyone on this call, from New Rochelle and Yonkers and Yorktown and everyone in between, whoever was on that call, the only way they're going to listen to you and care about what you say is if you take action, and ultimately there's a potential consequence to them financially. That's not the goal of the legislation. The goal is for safety and security. But if your CEOs are making 7 figures and putting out press statements about how great it is and how terrific of a job they're doing, and you have residents, we had someone, was it 11 days? Did we max out at 11 days? And there was no reasoning why we would see, and I think it's important, and I'm sorry, I know you guys sometimes get mad at me because I can go on, and I know I can, I apologize. I'm a trial lawyer. But just without naming the municipalities, because it's irrelevant, you know, one particular municipality on Saturday had 899 outages, 36 crews. One had 71 outages, 3 crews. 118 outages, 5 crews. 85 outages, 3 crews. 170 outages, 5 crews. So there was no rhyme, no reason. I'll feel bad for Rye. Rye had 376 outages with 2 crews, and we had 505 with 4 crews. It didn't. Why would someplace that has 85 outages have 3 crews to our 505? And again, how many people are in a crew? Where's the crew? So I'll just close saying that there needs to be some sort of accountability. I don't know how it's done. I don't know if it's done on the county level, on the state level. I'd like to think that the governor and our state representatives, and someone Buchwald was on the call, someone from Murphy's office was on the call, Senator Klein's office was on the call, other assembly people were, Abernathy, I may say his name wrong, but Abernathy was on the call. You guys run all the calls. So that's great and good, but I don't know how the answer, but maybe it's banning, coming together as municipalities saying, if you're not going to take this seriously, we'll enact our own legislation, and then you certainly will, because the fear of the almighty dollar will put our safety and health first.
Well, Jeremy, if I may, just in terms of what our recourse is, I think you're exactly right that it has to be sort of a concerted effort where we work together as a county and as towns within the county. One silver lining of those daily calls is that we got to sort of know, at least by voice, the folks from the other town who care passionately about this issue. Last Friday morning, I stood with George Latimer and over 50 different representatives from different towns, mayors, supervisors, councilmen, what have you, from various towns across Westchester, in calling for serious change and reform and accountability in terms of working with Con Ed moving forward. So I do think it has to be an effort that comes from working sort of at the county level. But then, I think, as has been suggested to us by various people on social media and otherwise, we also have to look at our own response as a town, as a community, as neighbors, and as individuals. And so I
Very-
think we're going to start that process too.
Very true, but my big issue, and I don't want to alienate Con Edison, we need them in our community, this is simply a fact. But that aside, no matter what steps you take in a municipality, if they can't tell you how many trucks are in a crew, where those crews are real time, how many people are in that crew,
Absolutely.
because all crews are not created equally. I think that was your line of Little Animal Farm action.
One crew had 6 trucks and 20 people, and another crew
So-
would have.
Yeah, so I think this is a
guys.
communication issue, an information issue that that no matter what steps we take, no matter how many trees, I'm not saying we're cutting down all trees after we had this conversation before, just moments ago, no matter, even if you did in theory, just cut down all the trees and kicked out the Lorax, there would still be a communication and information issue. So, but anyway, I want to work with Con Edison, but we have to figure out a solution.
Assemblyman Buckold has already sent out an email inviting all the town supervisors to a summit, and I already RSVP'd that I'm going.
Great.
Senator Murphy is looking to, is scheduling something. He actually asked if they can use the Chapel Performing Arts Center for a Senate committee. So every single politician is going to be working on this issue. And obviously, the simple fixes. If you're going to have 500,000 people out with a storm like this, obviously, there's going to be, if Con Ed had enough workers on hand to deal with that, then our electric bills would be pretty high. But the fact is there's problems with how long it takes mutual aid to arrive. There's problems with people getting getting incorrect messages being texted to them. There's a lot of things they can do to improve. I'm sure they actually improved a lot since Sandy. I know as a town, we've improved a lot since Sandy. Residents were very happy with the communication and the response, but there's always going to be room for improvements, and everybody's going to be looking at it now and studying it and coming up with recommendations, including Con Ed. And, the fact is that, you learn from these, you have 500,000 people out, you're going to learn some lessons, and they are.
I think, unfortunately, business, no matter what they are, the bigger they are, as you used the term before, when the news cycle ends and people forget, especially if it's once every 5 years, but then that may become once every 3 years, we have these types of storms as things change. You just can't let them forget, and we have to just make sure that it stays as best we can in the news, in our own personal news cycles. So.
Well, for example, there's a couple of things that, we could talk about this all night, but like smart meters. I know that I think they have like $1 billion grant or something to install smart meters. Now, if everybody had a smart meter, Con Ed would be able to know who has power and who doesn't. You don't need to call in the outage. All this stuff could be on a map.
That's
with
not the issue
smart
for them,
meters.
and that may be helpful, but remember, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is response and them being able to tell someone like you, and us, and Jill, and our DPW, where they're going, where they are,
But
what
that's-
needs to be
Right,
done.
and having more than line
think it's
watchers
both.
here.
I understand, but that could be, there's issues that could be solved too. You could have GPS in the trucks. You could see exactly where the trucks are. I'm not saying I
Right,
have
of
all
course,
the
I-
answers,
right, I know.
but the point is that there's technology out there that can
Let's
make
get
this
them to do
process.
it.
What Mike Kaplowitz suggested when we went down to their command center, which was, I thought, a great idea, which was there should be trucks on hand. We shouldn't have to wait. Listen, any storm like this, you're going to need to count on mutual aid. That's just the way it's going to be. But you shouldn't have to wait, especially communities like us who are less dense. We shouldn't have to wait. The first 3 days shouldn't be in a hold pattern while waiting for mutual aid to arrive. If you have trucks, if the state has trucks that are ready to be deployed in severe weather like this, which is only going to happen more and more often, then the mutual aid workers can jump on planes. They can be here in hours instead of days. They don't have to spend 2 or 3 days driving, where they get here exhausted, and plus the wear and tear on the trucks. The fact is that the state, with all the severe weather we're having, I don't think it's unreasonable if they had 100 utility trucks on hand for mutual aid to use when we need it. That was Mike Kaplitz's idea, and I think it's a great idea.
One last thing, which is really one last thing, not one A, B, and C. A local resident reached out and posted on Facebook as well, and I'm sure you're all aware of it, that, for lack of a better term, he commandeered a crew that wasn't doing anything. And whether he was advised the crew didn't have a job. Now, whether that's accurate or not is really inconsequential. Either they did have a job and they didn't have the information to go do a job, but they weren't working, and he got them to come to his neighborhood after driving around to do work. That's a problem. Either he commandeered, I don't want to say he commandeered in a negative sense, either someone was pulled off a job and they weren't taking the right orders or getting the right information, or that crew didn't have the right information to start with and wasn't doing anything. So there needs to be better communication, information, which is not an attack on anyone here, obviously. We did our best. So I don't want to alienate. That's not the goal and the objective, but that doesn't mean we can't confront respectfully and say, this needs to change, and here are some suggestions. And if you can't do it, we as municipalities are going to do it on our own.
Well, like I said, Buckwald's already, Buckwald's already planning something, Senator Murphy's already planning something.
And we're planning something as a town.
We're planning
so,
something as a
you know.
town. And listen, all I can say is after Sandy, if you look at the first town board meeting after Sandy, this room was packed with people screaming, and I was one of them. And you don't see that here today. So, as a town board, I think, and administration, we learned a lot from Sandy, and I'm sure Con Ed learned a lot from Sandy, and now they're going to learn a lot from Riley and Quinn, and this is going to happen more and more often. That's just the worst part about it.
Is there a way for us, and this maybe, I don't know who of you should answer this, but to advocate to get people's spoiled food paid for and whatever other expenses they incurred? Because it's not a named storm, my understanding is, in the terms of like a Sandy. This is something different, much lesser event. But it may be a lesser event in terms of what it's classified as, but it certainly was not a lesser event in terms of times out of power.
So I received an email from Senator Murphy with Con Ed and New York State electric gas claim forms.
Right, because a resident reached out to me and said that she was advised that she cannot get reimbursed upon contacting Con Edison.
Oh, well, on the website, I think I saw that too. On the website, it basically says that
Put in the claim form anyway?
weather, they don't reimburse or something, but I don't think there's a definitive answer. It's basically just like a sort of disclaimer, but, you could still fill out the form, whatever.
Yeah. I did speak with Jerry Shapiro today, who's Senator Gillibrand's representative, and she told me that they were pushing to get Riley and Quinn classified as some sort of designated storm, so that we might be able to be eligible for FEMA reimbursement. We traditionally keep track of every single expenditure for overtime, DPW, parks, police, because FEMA requires it. And we have been very successful in the past. We've actually gotten 100% of our overtime reimbursed for FEMA for both Irene and Sandy and Floyd.
It'd be terrific.
So if we could do, that would certainly be very helpful. The police were very good about going out and even volunteering as flagmen when Con Ed didn't have proper crews in place, because, we're not stingy with our resources. If we've got them and it helps a resident get back power, we're there.
So on that point, just the story today that the Westchester County Board of Legislators passed a resolution calling on the Public Service Commission to sort of force Con Ed's hand in terms of recouping municipal costs for overtime and other sort of storm-related expenses.
Right.
Is there anything that we would need to do as a town to support that legislation?
We certainly could support it. It's curious to me because that's never the way we've ever gotten reimbursement.
Yeah.
It's always been FEMA reimbursement. And although I like it, it's a great idea, I can't help but think that it's a boomerang, because what's going to happen is that Con Ed is going to have tremendous expenses. They're going to go to the Public Service Commission and say that they've got tremendous expenses, and we're going to end up with rate hikes.
As tremendous as their profits?
Yeah.
I don't know, I volunteered, I understand, 10A is what the head of, Con Ed's doing. I offered to do it for 5, and I would do just as good a job, maybe better.
Well, thank you, Joe.
It sounds more like a backstop if we don't get classified as a FEMA sort of category event.
Yeah, so I'm just very interested. That was the word that that I got. That I know that the federal representatives are looking long and hard at Con Ed, and evidently Con Ed's a little uncomfortable with that. And I was
Nick, can we
pleased
pass
to hear that.
legislation that our supervisor forgoes his salary and gives it back to the public?
The town of Newcastle, that's a fabulous idea.
The reality, on a serious note, though, the reality
Somebody
is,
humor me on that one.
it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter how many people jump up and down and scream and hold hearings. At the end of the day, there's going to be more and more severe weather. Con Ed is never going to be able to restore everybody's power when you have 500,000 people out. They're never going to be able to restore people's power within days. And
Correct.
we as a community need to understand that, and we need to be able to, shelter in place. Because if you have down wires and down trees, it doesn't matter if we have this shelter that looks like the Ritz-Carlton, people are not going to be able to get there. And we need to be able to shelter in our homes, and if that means getting generators or solar panels or just having the necessary equipment, because even though there's going to be a lot of talk about how Con Ed can improve, the fact is that I think we'd all be naive to think that this is not going to repeat itself, and everybody needs to be able to shelter in place. More people had generators this storm than Sandy. And probably more people have generators for the next storm. Or what I recently learned is that solar panels, you can use them actually in a power failure. I have solar panels, and I didn't know I was allowed to use them. You are allowed to use them, but you have to have
Battery backup or something?
no, you have to have a switch. That basically, the reason you can't use solar panels in a power failure is because it's sending electricity back to the grid. And if a guy's working, a lines person is working on the line, they can get electrocuted if you're getting power. It's sent back to the grid. But what you have to do is you have to have a cutoff switch, which is just like you do when you have a generator. You basically are saying if you're going to turn on your generator on your house during a power failure, I'm sorry, it's the same with a generator, but if you're going to turn on your solar panels during a power failure, in order to turn them on, you're forced to shut something off that prevents the power going back to the grid. That protects the lines people. Now you can use your solar panels during a storm, and then you can use the battery backup to store power during the day that you can use at night. Now I didn't know that, but this is things that people could be educated about. So not only can you have solar panels to reduce your electric bill, but it's also a way to deal with a power failure. So it's just things that people don't know. I didn't know it till recently. And generators are great, but they're not exactly the most environmentally friendly things either.
All right.
Just real quick, mundane. Just a couple of shout outs that we didn't hit so far, and that was Pam Thornton and the Chappaqua Library staff that opened late,
Yes.
stayed open late on Saturday night to offer the library as a warming center till 7 p.m. on Saturday night, and they opened early and stayed open late on Sunday for our residents as well, which was really fabulous. Can't thank them enough. And Superintendent Christine Ackerman and the CCSD community that opened up the facilities to our residents for hot showers. That was also really just above and beyond. And to our parks guys that actually stayed overnight to man the community center 24/7 as a warming center. So they were fabulous as well. Tax receipts. Tax receipts for the prepayment of your 2018 town taxes are available from the tax office. You need to give them a call at 238-4773 or by emailing taxreceiver@mynewcastle.org. So when your accountant asks for them, we've got them. And just a couple tips on winter just driving and snow removal. So our DPW crews really do a terrific job keeping our roads clear. But just a reminder to those people who have private plow companies, it's illegal and it's dangerous to dump snow from your driveway into the road. So please ask your plow driver to push it to the side of your property and not onto the road. And while we're at it, you'd have to clean the snow off from the top of your car when you drive and that snow goes flying. It's a hazard to the car in back of you. And it's illegal. So remember just to be courteous to everybody on the road. And again, for that email that we created, the storm damage at mynewcastle.org, the purpose of that is not for DPW crews to come around and to, clean up debris that may be on the side of the road. It was actually for Con Ed to be alerted to the remaining trees that are leaning on wires and branches that are left there so that we can try to get ahead of the next storm and the next storm damage. For those residents that have debris on their property, if they want to bring it down to the recycling center, refuse and recycling center on Hunts Lane, we will accept that kind of brush and tree debris with proof of residency. It's for residents only. Okay, thank you.
So what about if trees in the right-of-way fell? Who cleans those?
If it's the state right-of-way, we contact the state. County right-of-way, we contact the county. If it's ours, if you can call the DPW. But, I am concerned that there are people that are, cleaning up their property and laying, brush on the side of their property, thinking that DPW is coming and cleaning it. And unfortunately, our crews have way too much to do. Okay.
All right.
Yep. All right, so here we go. So, well, public comment, new business? I'm going to assume that nobody? Okay, we have 2 public hearings. So, need a motion to open the public hearing and reopen it.
I move to open the public hearing on the amended local law for snow and sidewalk removal.
Yeah.
Second.
All in
So-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't know what the board wants to do with this. I mean, it's March.
Wait, I think we're
We're gonna take and hold it?
Yeah, I think last time we spoke, maybe we should, hold off and try to incorporate it into what we decide to do with our
Our sidewalks?
sidewalks for the
Downtown?
streets.
Okay, all right, so why don't we pull it off the agenda for now, okay? We'll table it, and we'll revisit this when we decide what we're doing with our downtown.
Right.
Okay.
So I move to, are we closing or adjourning it indefinitely?
I think you're closing
Close
it.
it.
If you redo it, you'll renotice it.
Okay, I move to close the public hearing on the amended local law for snow removal on sidewalks. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And next,
I move to open the public hearing on off-site parking. Can I get a second?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so this is, who wants to give us a little summary? Max? No. I'm just kidding. Keeping you on your toes.
Nick?
So this was for a regular zoning code amendment with respect to the off-street parking requirements for the instructional homes. If you recall, we discussed it at the work session. With, right, with the number of spaces provided. And so this is just the public hearing. And then you typically would receive comments. If there are none, then close it and then hold it open for a week to receive any written comment, and we can discuss it further at your work session.
Can you remind me, did this go to the planning board for comment as well?
It did. It did. I don't, right, right.
Oh,
So
it
the
came
planning
from
board
the
actually
plan-
made the recommendation
I see.
that would be the change. And so they did go back to them, and they, to no surprise, favorably recommended a recommendation.
I see, okay.
All right, so you want to follow what Nick said? We basically close it and leave it open for written comments?
Then we can just review it at the next work session, just to see if any comments have come in. We'll summarize the law again, go through it with you, and make sure it's ready for adoption.
Okay.
So I would leave it for what date, Joe?
My daughter's calling.
We'll hold it over to the 27th? Oh, no, let's hold it open for public comments to the 23rd?
Okay, Friday the 23rd.
Yeah, why don't we do it 9 o'clock in the morning, okay?
So I move to close the public hearing and to leave it open for written comments until 9 a.m. on March 23rd. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now we move on to our resolutions. Did we clean up the resolution as far as,
This,
No, we need to discuss it.
okay.
For the
We're
composting.
going to discuss it tonight?
Yes.
Okay. So should we discuss it now before we can start banging out the resolutions?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Composting?
So I thought the concept was saying that if it was more than we
yeah,
thought it
number
would be,
three.
that it was going to come back for, it would need further board approval. It was only
Yes.
going as far as the pilot program,
Right.
right?
Right, that's the general, that we were not approving it beyond the pilot program. Because the other thought, and I know it was SAB's intention, that the county would jump on board with this, that we would not be standing alone, that once they saw that there were a number of communities that were joined in the program, that the county would step up and do their own composting program so that we wouldn't have to take the compost so far and perhaps create their own composting collection facility. So I'm hopeful that, if this pilot program is allowed to begin, in a year or so, maybe the county would have already caught up with us, and we'll be in a different position than we are now.
But when we call it a pilot program for the 500 households that buy the materials and opt into
Best-
the
best case
program,
scenario.
we are not telling them that it's a 6-month pilot and that at the end of the 6 months, the pilot is over and we will think about whether to continue to move forward with it. If they purchase the materials and become a part of the pilot program, unless there is a reason for us to discontinue it, such as we found that there are the excessive spills or the smells and whatnot, outside of those reasons, the program would continue to move forward. Is that correct?
Right, but it
Right.
wouldn't grow.
It wouldn't grow when we hit 500,
Right. Okay.
but we're not
So-
ending
Until
at
if and when the county jumped in and
evaluating it.
gave us money?
Right.
Or
Okay.
took over.
Because we didn't want to commit to spending
I-
significantly more money.
Right.
Ivy, I don't want to speak for you.
Right.
I know that you had concerns about the way the language was currently. Could you
Yeah.
just review that for Nick so that?
Right, okay, so at the top of page 6 of the packet, there's a clause here that says, "Be it further resolved that if the food scrap recycling program grows beyond a pilot program, additional action shall be required from the town board, and a significant investment shall be required, including but not limited to safe handling of spills through a trench drain with connection to county sewer." So we
I thought it
discussed
should
this
just
at
say-
several meetings and said that we were not in a position to approve a,
Yeah.
$50,000 to $150,000 investment in this program to.
That's-
So why bother having that language?
I thought it was saying the town board would need to approve any significant investment, which we're not saying we're not approving now, but who knows? In a few years, we may
That's- how
decide it's
about
worth
that-
it, we may
that
Then why
not.
even need that?
before
Why
the
put
s-
it-
You
the
need
food
the
scrap-
town board to
Then why
take
put it in?
affirmative
Do you wanna
action
put that
before
the
anything
food
else is
scrap
But it's
program
certainly
goes
not-
beyond a pilot program, that it has to come back to the board?
Yeah, right, that would solve, I think this language was suggested by Jerry, just to make sure the board was aware of it when you're doing this pilot program. If it does grow beyond the pilot program, that trench drain with a connection to the county sewer would be necessary, in his opinion.
Well, it's not
Well, no, I mean,
necessarily
we've discussed
necessary.
this in
Right.
detail and
Yeah.
and we believe
And the
there's a way
board-
to move forward with this program without that connection to the sewer.
Right.
Right.
So
but-
why isn't the language just, when we strike the language?
Special language, yes. Just say that if the food scrap program goes beyond a pilot program, additional action shall be required from the town board, period.
That's
'Cause
fine.
that's a statement, that's true.
Whatever that may be.
That's
that-
right.
It's
Right.
not limited to this particular
Right.
clause.
Right.
Okay, so just take out everything from "and" a significant on?
Yeah,
To sewer.
Got it.
that works.
Does that work for you, Ivy?
Yep.
Okay, good.
I just didn't want to give people the impression that we were going to
fair.
spend.
Yeah, because we're, no.
And why are we calling it an ad hoc committee? I mean, what makes the committee an
It's
ad
not
hoc?
permanent,
Okay.
it's not ex officio either.
He just likes that.
He likes to use those big words.
All right.
All right, so let me lead us off here. Ooh, I got a big one here. All right, municipal resolution urging the DEC to issue strict regulations for anchorage grounds. All right, whereas in 2016, the U.S. Coast Guard proposed establishing new anchorage grounds along the Hudson River between Yonkers and Kingston. Whereas the Governor Cuomo signed a particular bill into law, positioning New York State to continue to fulfill certain responsibilities as it relates to the Hudson River and the neighboring communities. Whereas the federal government and New York State share concurrent jurisdiction over the Hudson River in many situations. Whereas it remains a top priority of the town of Newcastle, I'll read this one in full, to prevent any new anchorage grounds in the Hudson River from being sited at locations where they pose a clear and direct threat to the environment, quality of life, and regional economic developmental goals of the Hudson Valley. And Whereas a new law gives the Department of Environmental Conservation the ability to establish areas of the Hudson River where it shall be unlawful for certain petroleum-bearing vessels to enter, move, or anchor. Resolved, may it be resolved that the Town of Newcastle Town Board requests that the DEC Commissioner immediately advance a rulemaking process to establish tanker avoidance zones for petroleum-based vessels, implementing the strongest possible regulations allowed under the law, and it be further resolved. The Town Clerk of the Town of Newcastle hereby authorized and directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Honorable Andrew M. Cuomo, Governor of the State of New York, the Honorable Basil Sagos, if I'm saying that right, I apologize, Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation, the Honorable State Senator Murphy, Honorable Assemblyman David Buchwald, and to such other persons as a town board in their discretion may deem proper in order to effectuate the purpose of this resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. You're up.
I'm up, okay. Resolved that the attached schedule of charges for unpaid water for property shown in the tax rolls are hereby fixed and determined by the board and certified to the supervisor of the Town of Newcastle. 2, that such amounts are levied against the real property as set forth on the attached schedule of charges for unpaid water. 3, that the same be raised by tax upon the real property in the Town of Newcastle, liable therefore at that time and in the manner provided by the town law and Westchester County Administrative Code. And 4, that the amount of such tax be stated in a separate column in the annual tax rolls of the Town of Newcastle under a column entitled Water Rents.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 You go. It's you.
Whereas the United States EPA reports that food scraps account for approximately 15% of municipal solid waste. Whereas resident interest in food scrap recycling is evidenced through the success of the Chappaqua School District Program and other similar initiatives. Whereas a drop-off site located at the Town Recycling Center on Hunts Lane would support resident access to commercial-grade food scrap recycling service that meets community needs in a cost-effective manner. And whereas the creation of an ad hoc committee consisting of residents with interest in food scrap recycling who would conduct outreach and education regarding the new service, and town staff who would work to monitor the program implementation. And whereas the town board discussed this initiative at its work session on February 27th, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby establishes a food scrap recycling program strictly for the Town of Newcastle residents, as further described in the proposal attached. Be it further resolved that the food scrap recycling pilot program shall be funded through the existing fiscal year 2018 DPW operating budget. Be it further resolved that the food scrap recycling program if the food scrap recycling program grows beyond a pilot program, that additional action shall be required by the town board. Be it further resolved that if there are excessive spills, smell, or hygiene concerns, that the pilot program will be discontinued. Be it further resolved that only Newcastle town residents shall be permitted to participate in the pilot program, and only food scraps or organic material from residential dwellings may be recycled. Be it further resolved that an ad hoc committee on food scrap recycling is hereby established as of the date of this resolution and expiring on November 30th, with the following members: Susie Novak, Richard Goldsmith, Bart Carey, Michael Sacali, Steve Coleman. Be it further resolved that the committee's responsibilities are as follows: coordinate program implementation, provide public program education and outreach to residents, monitor program success and make recommendations as to the continuation of the program, and provide a report to the town board by November 1st, 2018, summarizing the results of the pilot program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before I forget, I have a general question, but maybe there's something that, Rob, you may want to share. I've had to change my generator's oil, and I assume a lot of people did because it was running for so long. And you're sitting with oil that I have now in my home. What do I do with that oil? How do I dispose it? And we don't want people dumping it in their garbage or in their yard. So what we need to let our community know what to do.
I will find out what to do with it, because I have to tell you, I've got it sitting in a plastic container on the side of my driveway.
I have it in a
and I
pan,
just,
so
I'm gonna,
Can we put
I
that out in
will
the
find out
newsletter
what the
and-
story is with it.
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll put it in the next e-newsletter, okay? But whatever people do, they should not, do not throw it down your toilet, your sink, do not put it in your garbage, just hold tight, we will tell you what to do with it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
totally. I just, as I was coming here tonight, I'm
You
like,
know
oh, I
what?
have it sitting there still.
Rather than wait, we should probably send out like a little alert. just saying, please don't do those three things.
I know,
And
but I
we
don't
will
wanna-
let you
I
know
don't wanna
what to
say-
do with it.
I don't want to say that without,
Speak tomorrow to.
yes, I will find out from DPW what we do with it.
I'm sure
Okay.
a lot of
The
people
gas
would.
station.
I mean, the three of us have it sitting around in some,
Yeah, I'm sure other people do too. Four of us.
most people
or three of
realize
us,
not to,
yeah.
we just don't know what to do with it.
All right.
Would have kept it there forever.
I would have sitting in my driveway, I'm like putting it off, ignoring it. All right, I authorize the release of the bond for street opening permit 2016 0005 in the amount of 500, that's doubled, in the amount of 500, to Coral Sea Pools, 518A North State Road, Briarcliff Manor, New York. Work at the site was restored to town satisfaction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Authorize the release of the bond for street opening permit 2016 0023 in the amount of 650 to the name reflected there, as well as the other name reflected there, 109 Hidden Hollow Lane, Millwood, New York. Work at the site was restored to town satisfaction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with Thale Industries for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extensions set forth below for 1 year effective June 6th of this year to June 6th of 2019, as all reflected below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with Peckham Industries, Inc. for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extension set forth below for 1 year effective June 6, 2018 to June 6, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Let me do this one too. Go ahead. It's the same thing. I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with Seneca Pavement Making, Inc. for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extension set forth below for 1 year effective June 6 through June 2018 to June 6, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to declare 4 obsolete vehicles as surplus, allowing staff to put them up for public auction. These vehicles and equipment will be placed for public auction using the professional services of Auctions International. as listed
Second.
below.
All in favor?
Aye. It's one of my favorite. You have a lot of cars there, though.
Yeah, I know. So why does this just say 4 vehicles?
There's more, there's one. Well, those are, no, those other ones are not.
Well,
they're
some are
only.
parts.
The following, can we just do the following?
Yeah.
Do we have to do it again, or is it?
Amended to say the following.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to enter into a 2-year contract with Auctions
you are.
International, Inc. of East Aurora, New York, for the sale of surplus government assets by online action. And it is further resolved that Commissioner Morshell or Assistant Commissioner Carey are hereby authorized to accept the highest bids resulting from such online auctions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve the request from the Beautification Advisory Board to hang a banner from April 9th through April 21st for the annual Town Cleanup Day to be held on Saturday, April 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to approve Bob Cioli and Terry Rowe attending Management Construction Project Seminar on Tuesday, March 27, 2018, and the use of a town vehicle to attend that seminar. The cost to attend this seminar is $279 per person for a total fee of $558.00.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve Commissioner Bart Carey, Assistant Commissioner, attending the Managing Construction Project Seminar on April 10th to 12th, 2018, and the use of a town vehicle to attend that seminar. The cost to attend the seminar is $335, and the cost for this event, including hotel and meals, is estimated to total $763.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize delivery of 5 cubic yards of mulch to Roaringbrook School to be used for this year's 4th grade beautification project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to authorize Girl Scouts Heart of the Hudson of Pleasantville, New York to set up cookie booths at the Chappaqua train station during the month of March on days and times to be approved by the town administrator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to accept the resignation of William Garrison, Assistant Recreation Superintendent, effective March 30th, 2018. We are upset about this, but we thank him for his service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the posting of the Assistant Superintendent of Recreation and Parks position until it is filled.
Wow, you really were so
Second.
upset, you like bounced back so quick.
Moving right
you could tell.
along,
Wow.
sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to hire William Byron's Lodge as a part-time recreation attendant in the Recreation Department with an hourly rate of $11 effective March 14th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to approve payment of claims in
Here
the
and
total
here.
amount. In the total amount of $707,000, $707,748.80. 2017 expenditures totaling $449,177.45, and 2018 expenditures totaling $258,571.35 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail reports, all dated March 9th, 2018. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, March 14th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I move to accept the following monthly reports for February 2018: Town Clerk, Court Clerk, Development Department, and Receiver of Taxes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you got one more here? Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Is it on the back of this? Oh, why didn't I see it? Oh, I'm sorry. I move to accept the resignation of Building Inspector Richard Polcari. The resignation will be effective March 23rd, 2018, and I will say that I've known Richie since I started as a prosecutor here. I think the role of Richie, with great disappointment. He's a terrific guy and a great building inspector, and we wish him luck in his future endeavors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to set a public hearing regarding a local law to amend Chapter 121 of the Town Code concerning tree preservation to be held at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 10th of this year in the Town of Newcastle Assembly Room located at 200 South Greeley Avenue here in the great town of Hamlet of Chappaqua, and to direct the town clerk to refer the proposed local law to both the Newcastle Planning Board and the Westchester County Planning Board for the review and comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to hire Elizabeth Cratera as a part-time recreation attendant in the Recreation Department with an hourly rate of $11 effective March 14th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to award the contract for the maintenance of the Pocket Park traffic island at the intersection of King Street and Bedford Road, retroactive from 2017, so for 2017, to Julie Greco at the cost of $35 an hour, not to exceed 50 hours for the year 2017.
Second.
How do we do that retroactively like that?
Aye.
Was the work already done? And
Yes,
we
the work was already done. She had been approved the year before. She continued at it. We found out that we did not actually have an agreement with her, so sort of catching up there.
Okay, and finally, I authorize the town controller to attend the 2018 New York State Government Finance Officers Association Conference. Sounds like fun, in Albany from Wednesday, March 21st through Friday, March 23rd. The total cost for this conference, including meals, hotel, and mileage, is not to exceed $700.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to adjourn.
That's it?
Second.
Others? Okay. Thank you.
Nay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.